Okay, Relume has taken things to the next level. Now you can use Relume to build sitemaps, develop wireframes for your site, use their style guide feature to develop different design concepts, and now you can instantly import the chosen design concept directly into Webflow with a simple click. It's a complete game changer. Let's get into it. Friends, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, Relume has just launched a new feature that honestly is just such a game changer. Now, if you use Relume, you might recall that last month they launched a feature called Style Guide. And basically the idea behind the Style Guide feature was that you could then basically take the wireframes that you would create inside of Relume and you could then test different design concept with it. So it's kind of like coolers, but for websites. And so I had a big play around with this because honestly, I'm not much of a designer. I struggle with picking fonts and colors and all those types of things. And I've been having so much fun with it. Basically, I'm going to be walking you through everything step by step. But in short, it comes up with different design ideas that you can then use to kind of see what your site will look like before you go ahead and build it. Now, one of the things that we still had to do was then jump back into Webflow and basically build out your entire style guide in order to make it work. Now, it was definitely easier because you had this particular page here as a reference doc, but now, my friends, they have taken it to the next level. Now you can choose a design system that you've developed here, and you can now import it directly into Webflow. And when I say you can import it directly into Webflow, I literally mean you click like 2 or 3 buttons and it will just automatically import all of your styles, all of your fonts, all of your pages, all of your images, all of your assets. And the amount of time that it will save you is actually going to be wild. Now, in this video today, I decided that instead of just talking about this one particular feature, I actually wanted to take you through the entire step-by-step process of using Relume so that anyone that might be new to it can actually see how good of a process this is for building sites. So we've got quite a bit to cover. Let's start off with the first part of all of this, which is to go over what Relume even does. Okay, so if you've used Relume before, what I'm about to tell you is going to be nothing new, but just in case you are brand new to it, Relume started off as a Webflow component library. Now, if you've ever built a site in Webflow, you'll know that building different sections and entire pages manually can take quite a bit of time. It's a little bit tedious. You always have to worry about things being mobile responsive. And so when Relume launched their component library, it basically gave Webflow developers access to tons and tons of different components that you could simply copy and paste straight into your Webflow project. Now, this in itself was already a massive time saver because now that you can copy and paste these different components and that are already mobile responsive, you're probably saving yourself at least 10 to 20 minutes building out individual sections. And so that is how Relume got super popular. But then they started building more tools that made it even easier to build entire sites. And the first big tool that they launched was the Relume AI Site Builder. Now, the way that the AI Site Builder works is by taking you through different stages of the design process. So the way it would start off was that you just simply provide a prompt to Relume. And what Relume would do first is generate a sitemap for you. So as you can see here, I've added my prompt. I'm going to be building a website to promote a running event happening in my neighborhood. And what Relume does is it then goes ahead, looks at your prompt, and then based on that decides what pages you're going to need on your website. So in this particular case, it decided, okay, you're going to need a home page, you're going to need an about page, you're going to need a race info page, a race detail page, a blog, and a blog post. Now, what I personally enjoy most about Relume, especially when compared to other AI tools, is that Relume really involves you as the designer or the developer in the actual creation of your sitemap. So what you can do first is you can decide whether or not you want to keep different pages within your sitemap. So let's say for this particular example, I don't actually need a blog post. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove that. And a blog is also not particularly important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my blog page with a volunteers page. Now, as soon as I've got that, I can then basically add whatever other pages I want. You know, I can maybe add a contact page, or I can reduce it down to even fewer pages. Now, as soon as I have come up with the high level structure of all of the different pages that I want, what I can do next is I can then use Relume to then generate the sections that are required in all of these different pages. So all I need to do is click on generate empty pages, and what will happen is it will go and have a look at my about page, it will look at my race info page, and based on that, make a list of recommendations for different sections that you need. Now, you'll be able to see what this looks like on the home page as you get started, because by default, it will just generate it for your home page because it assumes that every website is going to have a home page. And in here, you'll get an overview of all of the different sections that it recommends based on your prompt. Now, typically what I do at this stage of the process is to then go through all of the individual sections that were created for me, and I then go ahead and update the name of the section, and then I also update the description of the section. Now, the reason why this is important is because later on when we move on to the next stage of the process, which is the wireframing stage, Relume will look at all of these individual sections and all of these descriptions, and based on what it is that you're trying to do with this section, will pick one of the components from their component library to create the section. Now, on a quick little side note, if you are building a site like this for a client, this is also a stage of the process where you would then have a conversation with the client about the sitemap so that you both have a very clear understanding of the scope of work. This part here is crucial, not just for both you and the client getting on the same page, but having a clear understanding of how many pages you'll build, how many sections you'll build, will give you a really good understanding of how much you're going to charge for this particular project. And this is just a great way to set expectations straight from the outset. Now, assuming we're happy with our sitemap, what we can do then is switch over to the wireframe view. Now, what you'll see is how Relume in real time goes ahead and creates all of these different sections based on the description of your sitemap. So every single section that you described will now have its own section. Relume would have picked a component that it thinks is the best fit, and it will then basically allow you to go through the process of making whatever changes you want. And once again, this here is a real key part of the process that I oftentimes find lacks with certain AI design tools that it just simply doesn't really involve the person who's actually building the site. And so what I can do here is I can now go through the process of making whatever changes I want. So the first change that I'd want to make, for example, is change the actual nav bar. So let's say I want to use this nav bar here. I'm just going to click on it, and then I can start going through individual sections. So if I want to replace an entire section, I can just click on replace component, and I'll then get access to the entire library of components inside of Relume, and I can then go through this section by section. Now, one of the things that you can do with the search that is quite good is if you, for example, want to have, 3 columns, you can type in something like, 3 columns, and what Relume will do is it will basically filter out all of the different components available on the site based on your search. Now, let's say we, like a certain section, but there's certain elements within the sections that we just don't want to use. So let's say we don't need the learn more button. What you can do is you can just click on it and you can just delete it. So you can see that these components are quite customizable as well. Now, another thing that you can do is you can also, change specific types of assets that are being used. So in this particular section here, we've got, our section on the left side and then an asset on the right side. You can first of all change out the different assets that you're using, and you can also change the direction of the asset placement. So whilst this is not Webflow, it does allow you to get the actual layout of your site pretty fast. Now, another thing that is incredibly useful and valuable at this stage of the process is to also start making updates to all of your copy. So there are a few ways that you can do this. First of all, you can just ask AI to, make it longer or make it shorter or whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, that was not good. So we'll make it shorter again. But what you can also do is you can actually just manually update the copy. So you can just go in here and you can write, this is some text. And then you can just go through all of the individual sections on your homepage and on all the other pages and basically get the actual wireframe right. Now, to save us time, I've just gone ahead and I have rebuilt all of the different sections for my homepage so that you can get a little bit of an idea of what the overall process looks like. I typically spend anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes on just editing all of the different sections, changing all of the different headlines. I do use ChatGPT quite heavily to help me optimize different section titles and that kind of stuff. So if you're someone that overthinks website copy a lot, I think that using something like ChatGPT will really speed up the process. But assuming that you are happy with how this all looks and how it works, now we can move on to the next part, which is to create your style guide. Now, the way that the style guide works is super simple. You just click on style guide, and what will happen is Relume will grab the homepage that you set up and it will then start applying different styles to it. Now, when Relume launched this was a complete unlock for me because honestly, I don't think I'm particularly good at picking fonts and colors. So what I can do here is I can now just test and experiment with different design concepts with the AI style guide builder. So the first thing that we can do here is we can just rotate through different styles that we like. You'll see how it automatically updates fonts, it updates colors, it updates the style of the buttons, and it basically does a whole bunch of different things that allow you to very quickly see what your website could look like. Now, there are a few things that I always do when I start working in the style guide builder. The first thing is that I want to update a logo. So the reason why I think updating the logo is good is because this is when things really become real, you know? So you can see how me uploading this logo here will replace it on light mode, I believe. So if we go and switch to light mode, you can see how my logo has now been updated. And then if I'm creating a dark mode version of the site, I can upload the white version of this logo. So let's go in here, upload it. And just like that, you can really now start to see, you know, how you're starting to add your own elements to the site. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but if you later on go and create some of these design concepts that you want to share with a potential client that you want to work with, and you're actually using their assets in your designs, that will make it a lot more real for them. And I find that that just increases the chances that one, they'll want to have a call with you, two, they'll want to go ahead with the build. So just the ability to update all of those things does make a big difference. Now, another thing that I have found incredibly useful with the style guide is to actually update images to fit what it is that I'm creating. So if I'm creating a site for myself, I'll typically just go to Unsplash, find a bunch of stock photo that I can use. But if you're building this for a client, a recommendation that I have is to actually go to their social media accounts, the existing websites, and to just get all of the images off there so that you can then add them to this website, which once again just adds an element of it just being a little bit more real. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead, I'll select my image, and then I'll just go ahead, add it in here. And once I have gone through all of the different sections and updated all of my images, that's when I'll start to make some of the design changes. Okay, so here we are. I have uploaded all of the different images to my homepage, and you can see that, you know, my race calendar section has got racing photos. You can kind of see here that I've got, you know, a course map section. This is probably not an ideal photo, but we had to speed things up. You know, everything kind of looks real, you know. It's definitely not finished, but if we look at it just from a starting point, this is perfect. Okay, so what is it that we can actually do here in order to kind of change the style and look and feel of our site? Now, the first thing is that Relume actually allows you to create multiple concepts. So obviously, sometimes you just need a few different variations in order to kind of figure out what it is that you want. The way that it works is you just click on new concept, and what it will do is it will create a brand new canvas for you. And in your canvas, you can now start rotating through different variables. Now, the main variables that you can edit are colors, typography, and then some UI elements like buttons, cards, and images. Now, if you click on the Surprise Me button, you basically randomize all of the different variables that are available to you. And this can be a fun starting point if you just want to see what different options look like, if you just have zero ideas. But if you are already coming into this with a bit of an idea of, you know, what your primary brand color is, what the fonts are that you're going to use, then you actually have quite a lot of control over how it is that you can set those variables. So let's say, for example, we have a primary color that is, I don't know, this nice flashy green. And what we're looking for now is just a way to pair this color with other accent colors. So what we can do is we can actually lock in our green, and then we can just click on the shuffle button, and what will happen is it will automatically generate different colors that we can then potentially use. Now, at this stage, we can only see the green, but if we go down to different sections, you'll see that you can actually rotate through different color schemes in your sections. So if we click on it once, it will take us to the green color. If we click on it again, it will take us to the purple color. If we click on it again, it will take you to the orange color. And so that way you can kind of rotate through all of the different color schemes that have been developed for you. Not just can you rotate through one particular scheme, you can also rotate through the different shades that are available. So let's say we want to go with a real dark version of this orange. You can just simply click on the command key, and then you can rotate through the different shades. And so then you can go ahead, you can see what does the dark green version look like, the dark purple version look like. And this is a way for you to really quickly experiment with what colors work best for you. So that is that part. You can also, switch to a dark theme version of your site. Basically, what will happen here is it will basically rotate through all of the different color variables or shades, I suppose. And so in dark mode, it will just take the darker shades, and in light mode, it will take the lighter shades. And so really allows you to kind of really speed things up in whatever way you want. Now, the next part in all of this are fonts. Now, fonts, again, you can use the shuffle button and it will just rotate through random fonts that it finds for you. But if you, again, already have an idea of a font that you want, I actually like this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this. You can then start rotating through all of the body fonts. Now, again, you can... Relume will make some suggestions based on, the heading font that you're using. But if you want, you can also search for, just the standard fonts that are available to you in Google Fonts. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select that, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, you get the idea. You can kind of rotate through all of the different styles that you want. And, if you want to change the layout of certain cards, you can do this as well. A quick little tip that I do have is if you upload all of your images to one of the concepts, instead of going and creating a new concept, you can just click on duplicate concept, and then just make sure to unlock all of your locked variables. But you can then basically save all of the different images that are currently being used on your page. Now, let's say we get to this stage of the process where we have found 3 different design concepts that we like. Now, if you're building this for yourself, now we'd move this into Webflow, and I'll show you that in a second. However, if you are using this to pitch clients, then what you can do now, and this is honestly something that I think is going to really help people land a lot more clients, you can then go ahead, you can click on pitch concepts, and what it will do is it will basically give you a preview of all of the different design concepts that you created. And you can now copy this link, add it to an email address, and then email a potential lead your design concepts. And when the lead, or the person that received your email gets access to this, they'll be able to see a full page preview of what the homepage looks like. And if this is not a good conversation starter with a client, then what is? Now, assuming that you send out a bunch of these emails, a bunch of these concepts to different businesses, now it's time to get sign off. And once we get sign off, it's time to build it inside of Webflow. And this is the brand new feature that Relume just launched. Now, I got access to this a week and a half ago, and oh my goodness, so cool. So the way it works is you start off with the Relume style guide. You then click on clone in Webflow. Then what will happen is it will bring up this page here, and then all you need to do is just duplicate it by giving it a site. So I'm just going to call this the Manor Park Marathon. And then what will happen is it will create a brand new project for you inside of inside of Webflow with the Relume style guide. Now, if you've never done this before, it's super simple. So you'll get 2 pages. You'll get your home page and you'll get your style guide page. Now, prior to being able to import all of this, the way that you would have to go through editing your style guide is you'd have to go through here and update every single font and all those kind of things. A little bit tedious, to say the least. Just a quick little one, you will always get variables as well. So in your design, in your default design, you'll see here that you've got, you know, just your standard black and white colors. You've got your standard color schemes. And because we haven't actually imported anything yet, there's nothing really to work with. However, where the magic happens is then when we start to use the Relume app inside of Webflow. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch the Relume app. You're going to have to log in, but once you're logged in, you're going to see all of your different projects that you've set up inside of Relume. So the last one that I worked on was the Manor Park running event. And what we'll be able to do now is we'll be able to now choose from one of our free design concepts. So you remember the free options that we created. These are essentially the colors that we work with. Now, I'm going to stick with concept 1. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to click on continue. And what I'm going to get asked next is what pages I want to import. Now, you can import all of your pages, or you can import just whatever pages you want. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick the home page, about page, races, and then the individual race pages, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on start import. Now, this process can take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video here, and once I'm done, I'll come back and we'll check out what happened. Okay, so it is done. It's imported all of my different components, and as you can see, it saved me about 30 hours. Now, I think this is based on how long it would take to build individual sections, to build out your style guide, all those types of things. So definitely something that will save you a lot of time. Now, let's go and check out our homepage. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and you can see how just like that, it has imported exactly what I built inside of Relume. Now, there will be certain components that will come with instructions when you have things like hover states, those types of things, or any types of animations. They'll add this to explain how you can modify it, but if you don't need it, we'll just go ahead and delete it. And then we can go ahead and just see what was created for us. So you can see that all of our sections were built beautifully. All of our copy and all of our images were imported. We can see that in certain instances, Relume can't be edited. So for example, I can't actually remove these icons inside of Relume, but now that it's in Webflow, I can just continue to edit it in the exact same way that I would if I were building a website from scratch. So let's go ahead, remove those. And just like that, we've really created the first iteration of this site that really is very close to shippable. Now, obviously, it's also created a few other pages. And if we go and check out these other pages, you'll see that most of these pages, if not all of these pages, just have the standard black background. Okay, so you can see here, it's just not really applied any of our styles. And that is because at this stage, we've only really styled our homepage. But when Relume went through the process of importing all of our styles, what it actually did was it actually created, or basically updated our style guide. So you can see here how all of my fonts were automatically updated. Then if we scroll a little bit further down, you can also see that color schemes were generated for us. So we've got 4 color schemes. We've got scheme 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this will become super relevant in just a second. You can also see how all of our buttons were styled. You can also see how all of our variables were updated. So if we go and have a look in here, you can see how it created different color schemes for us. It updated all of our colors that we might want to use. It also imported certain UI element styles, for example, border radiuses or border widths. It updated our typography. So all these things that can be changed. Now, where this gets super powerful is when it comes to actually then styling out individual sections. So let's say we've got this about section here. Now, what we can do is we can now click on the section, and now you'll see that a combo class has been applied to it. So at the moment, it's set to color scheme 1, but because Relume actually generated a variety of combo classes for us with different schemes, we can actually now start to rotate through them. So this is what color scheme 2 would look like. This is what color scheme 3 would look like. And this is what color scheme 4 would look like. And so the idea now is that you can actually go through all of these different sections and you can update them to look exactly the way that you want. So let's say for this particular section here, we want to have color scheme 2. We can just add that in here. And then we just keep going. Now, there'll be certain instances where you're going to have buttons that might not be updated with the different colors that you need. So what you can also do is you can actually just use combo classes based on how your style guide is set up. Now, anyone who's used Webflow before is going to be familiar with the concept of combo classes, but basically what you want to do is you want to basically use your style guide as a reference point to see what certain buttons look like. And if, for example, here, we're not happy with this particular style of button because obviously it's a black button on a black background, then what we can do is we can actually just go ahead and very simply style it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find one of my color schemes. And you know what? Let's just take this color here. Let's just take this color here for now. And what you'll see is then when we go back to all of our different pages, that it automatically applies those styles to those buttons and you don't really run into the same issue anymore. Okay, so this is pretty much it. This is the first version of the style guide importer. It's massive just because this part here was a very tedious part of the process after you designed your ideas in Relume to then go ahead and build it all out inside of Webflow. But now it all happens automatically. Keep in mind that you are going to have to use the starter project for Webflow in order for this to work. I'll leave a link to this in the description down below. With that being said, huge fan of what the Relume fellas are doing. I'm super stoked with this particular feature. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. And other than that, thanks so much for watching the entire video, and I'll see you back here for the next one. Bye.